But we are about to watch the first Iron Man. Came out 2008, so 18 years ago. Oh my god. I wasn't even in high school yet. I feel like this movie was pretty good.
What's that?
I just built a
Pretty
budgeting app
good.
for Base 44.
Guys, Nina just built an app.
Welcome back to New Rockstars. I'm Eric Voss, and Iron Man launched the Decade of Joy that we now know as the Infinity Saga. Years later, the film still feels like it came out yesterday because its DNA ran through every MCU film to the present day, even the MCU films of tomorrow, hopefully. Hope is the name of the game here at New Rockstars as we spend this quarantine period with an in-depth rewatch and breakdown of every Infinity Saga film. And if I look or sound different, it's because the Blue Dungeon has been temporarily relocated to a bunker even closer to the Earth's core. But the limited air supply isn't stopping me from breaking down Iron Man scene by scene for all the fascinating visual secrets that we overlooked in earlier reviews. Let's get started. The film opens with
Literally
AC/DC's
using my
Back in
camera
Black.
has a mirror. This is not good.
This, of course, becomes Iron Man's kind of anthem. Happy Hogan calls it back when Peter Parker emulates Tony Stark in Far From Home.
Oh, I love Led Zeppelin!
Tony Stark, Robert Downey Jr., sells arms in Afghanistan, with director Jon Favreau updating Tony's wartime origin story from Vietnam in the comics to modern times.
Thank
Tony
you.
poses for
Good night.
selfies.
Appreciate
I don't want to
you.
see this on your MySpace page. Please, no gang signs. No, throw it up. I'm kidding. Yeah, peace. I love peace.
I love Iron
You have a
Man.
job with peace.
Tony's aversion to social media comes back again in the series.
If you find this recording, don't post it on
I think
social
how
media.
Shakur
It's gonna be a real
is. How
tearjerker.
Shakur is
But really,
out.
Tony's take on peace is the key to his
I
character.
haven't worn
He
curled
begins
my
his
hair
journey
so
as
long.
a peace-hating warmonger.
'Cause I just wear
But
curly
right
ass
after his
hair.
escape and transformation, he flashes
And I'm
a
bald
peace
headed
sign,
in real life,
and that
so
goal of peace
I don't have
comes
to
back
curl my
again
hair
and
either.
again in the saga.
Peace in our time. I just want peace.
Tony's Fun V gets hit and he's kidnapped by terrorists, and right away you can see from their red banner that this is the Ten Rings. The shadowy network controlled, we learn, by the Mandarin. Originally, the Mandarin was going to be Iron Man's primary villain in this first movie, but Favreau held off, realizing that, like the Emperor in Star Wars, audiences tend to be more accepting of magical masterminds from the shadows when he's introduced later in the sequels. Now, we did get a version of the Mandarin in Iron Man 3, but Marvel has hinted that the real Mandarin is still out there, and he will finally be revealed in the upcoming Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, played by Tony Leung. At an awards ceremony, we meet Rhodey, played in this movie by Terrence
Oh,
Howard.
that nigga.
Now, Howard was set up to play War Machine in the sequel.
That's who that nigga was.
Next time, baby.
But due to
In that movie?
disputes over his pay, he did not return and was replaced by Don Cheadle. And notice the music here. This theme comes back throughout the film.
Work it!
They're all renditions of the
Did not
60s
do
Iron
that.
Man animated series theme.
Tony Stark makes you feel he's a cool exec with a heart of steel.
And accepting on Tony's behalf is Jeff Bridges as Obadiah Stane.
Well, I'm not Tony Stark.
Stane's envy for Tony defines his character. Later, these exact words are what finally trigger Obi
turn
into
this up.
action.
Well, I'm sorry. I'm not Tony Stark.
Obi plays this interesting song on Tony's piano later.
I don't know how to curl my hair. I'm
How'd it
trying
go?
to burn myself because I don't know what's looking at my camera.
Wow, went that bad, huh?
This is actually a composition by Antonio Salieri, the envious colleague of the
shit,
genius
this works.
Mozart. Salieri was rumored to have plotted to kill Mozart, though that's disputed. But really, as the Salieri to Tony's Mozart, Obi will
have to
never be
take this
Stark,
out.
only Stein.
Not here.
Favreau himself plays Tony's bodyguard, Happy Hogan, whose role is expanded in later films. And Tony runs into Vanity Fair reporter Christine Everhart. Now in the comics, Christine Everhart works for the Daily Bugle. Later in the MCU, she continues on as an anchor for WHIH. And at Tony's home, she hears the voice of Tony's OS, Future Vision, Paul Bettany, as Jarvis. Just a rather
To
very
Driving
intelligent
Reckless?
system. Tony named it after Edwin Jarvis, Howard Stark's butler, who was played by
Better not
James
go outside
Darcy in
today.
Agent Carter and made a cameo in Avengers Endgame. We also meet Gwyneth Paltrow as Pepper Potts, politely taking out the trash, and as always keeping Tony on schedule.
The MIT commencement
Is
speech.
in June. Please don't harangue me about
Well,
this stuff.
Tony shrugs off speaking at his alma mater, MIT, but later in the series, when he cares more about his responsibility to society in the Civil War, he finally speaks at MIT. Tony tinkers with his Ford Roadster, which kind of serves as an analog for his new armor. Like, notice how the look of his original arc reactor reflects the valves of the exposed Roadster engine, and later the Roadster serves as an inspiration for the color scheme of the armor.
Tell you what, throw a little hot rod red in there.
On the plane, we see the Stark family crest, a double-headed eagle, which is historically an imperial sigil for an empire fighting wars on all fronts, never at peace, just like how Tony begins his journey. And then the music video that plays is Ghostface Killa's We Celebrate. Ghostface Killah is a huge fan of the Iron Man character and was gonna cameo in this movie as a Dubai tycoon, but the scene was removed. And then Tony presents his Jericho missile.
It's the first missile system to incorporate our proprietary repulsor technology.
And he's already dropping the word repulsor in there to establish how he derived the Iron Man repulsor blast tech from his missile hardware. And then we're back in the cave. Tony meets Yinsen. Yinsen is also from the comics when Tony's origin was in Vietnam. Here, Yinsen mentions having met Tony at a tech conference in Bern, which Iron Man 3 will later show in its prologue. This 10-ring cell is headed up by Raza. Now, Raza is also from the Marvel Comics, but he's a Shi'ar cyborg pirate. But in this movie, when Raza's face is burned, it makes him look a bit like his comic self, but still not really. Here, he's part of the Mandarin's network, and you'll notice that anytime he talks about his ambitions, there's a real eastward focus.
It allowed the great Genghis Khan to rule from the Pacific to the Ukraine.
A man with a dozen of these can rule all of Asia.
Raza also wears this ring, which some have theorized could be one of the 10 McLuhan rings of the Mandarin, but this movie at least doesn't specify. So Tony melts down the palladium from his rockets to construct the mini arc reactor from a box of scraps, and then he and Yinsen hammer together his Mark I armor. Marvel later used this exact hammer sound effect to play after the credits of Avengers Endgame.
Get exclusive Mortal Kombat 2 wallpapers for your PC with Bing.
I can't hit skip.
Choose your fighter. New wallpapers daily.
No, I can't. Fucking pissing me off.
So the Iron Man movie's composer was Ramin Djawadi, future composer of Game of Thrones and Westworld. Djawadi syncs the hammer strikes here with the score's machine-like rhythm. Tony's transformation in the cave reflects Plato's allegory of the cave. Plato's idea is that humanity is chained to a cave wall, able only to see shadows of reality. But only by unchaining oneself and escaping into the light can we see true enlightenment. Tony breaks his chains in the cave and emerges enlightened and transformed. When the guards check in on them, the first guy to get hit is a cameo by Tom Morello from Rage Against the Machine. A solid irony there. As Tony escapes, Raza fires a projectile that Tony dodges, and then Tony responds by firing right back at him. Her buddy Danny on Discord pointed out that this is the same move Tony uses on the tank later. And by the way, so you all know, a few days before each of these Infinity Saga rewatch videos come out, you can watch along with us live on Discord by becoming a patron of New Rockstars at patreon.com/newrockstars. So like, Tony escapes, somehow walks away from the same kind of crash that nearly kills Rhodey in Civil War. And when he gets back, they stop at Burger King. Now, this was actually based on Downey's real life. He said in an interview that in 2003, he was in his car with a ton of drugs, and his Burger King burger was so gross that it made him rethink his whole life, and he dumped his drugs in the ocean. So, thanks Burger King for helping me get some whales addicted to heroin. Fun detail here, Tony tells Obi that he only has one burger left, and then after eating that burger, he later pulls out another burger to eat during the press conference. Pepper meets Agent Coulson of the Strategic Homeland Intervention Enforcement and Logistics Division, later smushed together as S.H.I.E.L.D.
Like,
in the comics,
God bless
S.H.I.E.L.D.
him.
originally stood for Supreme Headquarters International Espionage Law Enforcement Division, and in '91 it was revised to Strategic Hazard Intervention Espionage Logistics Directorate. This movie gives a throwback to that history with the sighting of the yellow and black logo on S.H.I.E.L.D. headquarters. So Tony calls off weapon manufacturing. Obi drops a reference to his comic villain moniker.
We're a weapons manufacturer.
Obi, I don't want a body count to be our only legacy.
That's what we do. We're ironmongers. We make weapons.
And then Pepper plays Operation on Tony. This effect was created with a prosthetic chest projected out at an angle with Robert Downey Jr. hiding underneath it, with a bright light shining to hide the edges of the fake chest. They use the same trick in Star Trek First Contact. But Pepper ends up saving Tony's old arc reactor, and this goes on to become a symbol of Tony's rediscovered soul. He begins the film metaphorically heartless and caring only for metal, and he transforms into a man with a literal heart of metal, caring only for human lives.
I just finally know what I have to do. And I know in my heart that it's right.
and Daredevil aviator Howard Hughes. Actually, the filmmaker shot Tony's workshop on the soundstage at the former Howard Hughes Airport, where Hughes built his Spruce Goose plane. Tony flight tests the Mark II. Jarvis tells him about the altitude record of the SR-71 Blackbird. This is the jet that inspired the X-Jet Blackbird used by the X-Men. Producer Kevin Feige previously worked on the X-Men film. Tony freezes over, and this lesson ends up being crucial in Tony's defeat of Obi later, which is foreshadowed by his crash landing through the piano that Obi played his Envious Salieri song. Tony refines the suit into the Mark III armor with gold titanium alloy, reflecting the Golden Avenger armor that Iron Man wore in the early comics, but Tony mixes it with Hot Rod Red from his Roadster. But there's another inspiration here.
For Tony Stark's 3rd annual benefit for the Firefighters Family Fund.
Yeah, it's a firefighter benefit where Tony gets his first hero mission to Golmira. Tony sees himself as a firefighter, a first responder who swoops into hot spots to rescue innocents. This color red is also his way of expressing that purpose. At the benefit, Tony passes Stan Lee, mistaking him to be Hugh Hefner. Now, Lee is not playing Hugh Hefner. He's credited as himself, and in an alternate version of the scene, Tony realizes his mistake, and Stan responds, "That's okay, I get this all the time." Miss that guy. And Tony runs back into Christine.
Carrie.
That's right.
Tony's making a Stephen King reference. Carrie and Christine are both famous Stephen King titles. She tells Tony about the refugee crisis in Golmira, which grabs Tony's attention because it was Jensen's hometown.
I'm from a small town called Golmira.
And this amazing Golmira sequence has awesome sound design, very limited words. And it leads to a cacophony of screams, but Tony silences it like an orchestra conductor. Silence that makes Tony's one line in the scene land perfectly.
He's all yours.
Tony ends up in a dogfight with F-22 Raptors. One of the CAOC analysts is Joshua Harto. He also played Coleman Reese in The Dark Knight. And notice how the command addresses the pilots.
This is Whiplash 1. I've got the bogey in my sights.
Whiplash 1, what is it?
And what did Tony say was the name of the person Rhodey once hooked up with?
That lovely lady you woke up with. What was his name?
Don't do that.
Was it Ivan?
These sound like clues dropped by the film setting up the villain of the sequel, Ivan Vanko, Whiplash. And I just gotta shout out the amazing way this guy refuses to punctuate his 2 sentences.
That thing just took out an F-22 inside a legal no-fly zone. Whiplash 2, if you have a clear shot, take it.
Yeah. In Obi's swag-covered lounge, notice the chessboard. In the comics, Obadiah Stane creates a group called the Chessmen. Then Obi steals Raza's scavenged Mark I armor, kills his group. Meanwhile, in Tony's lab, you can see a version of Cap's shield being engineered on one of the tables. Now, obviously, this isn't the shield, but with Tony's dad being such a fan of Cap over the years, you can imagine his son always wanting to build a recreation of that shield. Pepper goes into Tony's office to find files proving Obi's illegal arms dealings. If you look closely at one of those files, it says the name Lebowski, Jeff Bridges' character from The Big Lebowski, whom Tony also shouts out in Endgame.
One side there, Lebowski.
And our man Lebowski keeps it chill with an employee.
Tony Stark was able to build this in a cave!
In a fucking cave?
With a box of scraps!
This poor dude is William Ginter Riva, played by Peter Billingsley, producer and longtime collaborator of Jon Favreau, who, as a kid, played Ralphie in A Christmas Story. This character makes one of the best ever returns 11 years later in Spider-Man Far From Home, applying his engineering skills to Mysterio's drone projection tech. Had Obi not spat in this guy's face, Peter Parker could have just had a normal Euro trip. Obi paralyzes Tony.
There's so many applications for causing short-term paralysis.
Tony would actually apply this tactic in a major battle later in his life, using Mantis to put Thanos in short-term paralysis so that they can try, like Obi did here, to steal the Crown Jewel weapon to eventually use that weapon back against the previous wielder. And with the help of Dumb E, Tony reaches Pepper's encased original arc reactor, making this the second time Pepper saved his life as a result of this operation. And Tony's task in the final act is to confront Obi, who is using his original Mark I design against against him. Tony has to defeat his past self, the hermit crab shell he built in the cave, and outgrew. So to fully transform, Tony must vanquish his old self. And to underline this transformation, Tony now launches out of the same hole that he crash-landed through earlier. It mirrors his emergence from death in the tomb to open air in Act 1. And this final launch must take him past the ruins of the piano, the bones of Obi, Salieri, and Obi, as Tony faces off to face the enemy. As Pepper and Coulson search for Obi, Favreau cranks up the horror by hiding the monster behind these chains. Yeah, they use the same creepy chains effect to hide the xenomorph in Alien as Brett looks for the cat Jonesy. Jonesy! Tony and Obi's fight smashes into a truck with a logo for Roxxon, the Marvel energy conglomerate that has shown up in the background of a bunch of places. If you look closely, Roxxon is also on the building behind them. Tony ends up defeating Obi by applying the lessons we saw him learn throughout the film. He lures Obi into high altitude, causing him to ice. He blinds Obi with flares like he did to the F-22s. He dismantles Obi's armor as he did to his own Jericho missiles in the cave. And most importantly, he trusts Pepper. He talks Pepper through a repeat of their operation exercise earlier. That was just rehearsal. Now they have to save Tony's life with an arc reactor on a giant scale. And now this final operation defeats Obi with the same power that powers Tony's heart. Heart power! Basically, Tony just found a way to make the lamest planet here actually effective. Guys, before his press conference, Tony reads a newspaper with a grainy photo of Iron Man through a barrier. Now this looks a lot like the leaked set photos taken from Iron Man a year before the movie came out. If so, very cool of the movie to take back ownership of that. And Tony reveals himself to the world.
Truth is, I am Iron Man.
Rewatching it makes the way Endgame repurposed the line even better. According to Kevin Feige, Downey ad-libbed the line. And the positive reaction inspired them to move forward in the MCU without secret identities. Like Thor doesn't even bother with his comics Donald Blake alter ego. Even Spider-Man is now outed as Peter Parker. Tony's swagger, his empathy, his leading with the heart has been the formula that has made every MCU film the success that it is. But on to the actual reason people watch these. The post-credit scene.
You think you're the only superhero in the world? Mr. Stark, you become part of a bigger universe.
I could just experience all this over again for the first time.
Who the hell are you? Nick
I
Fury,
would.
Director of S.H.I.E.L.D. I'm here to talk to you about the Avenger Initiative.
Feige revealed later that an alternate take included direct references to Spider-Man, the X-Men, and the Hulk.
As if gamma accidents, radioactive bug bites, and assorted mutants weren't enough. I have to deal with a spoiled brat.
They couldn't talk about the fucking X-Men for so fucking long.
Marvel Studios didn't have full ownership over any of these popular titles. They had to partner with Universal to make The Incredible Hulk, which will be the next movie on our Infinity Saga rewatch. But all of these years later, Feige's shooting the moon paid off. His success has given him greater narrative control over Spider-Man and the Hulk. And after the buyout of Fox, the reveal of the MCU mutants is on the way. Reminder that you can follow along with our Infinity Saga rewatches on Discord by becoming a patron.
And we're gonna end that right there. I think the Iron Man movie, 10 out of 10. Iron Man movie, 10 out of 10.